Wrote this song while crewing Aaron on a 100-mile foot race through the trails in the rain and mud. How about that? One hundred miles to go. 100 miles to go. Don't ask me why I do it, I don't know. Miles by foot. 100 miles by foot. Don't ask me why I do it, I can't stay put. Rain is a coming, can't give a fit. Rain is a coming, can't give a fit. Don't ask me why I do it, but I am legit.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the MR Runningpains podcast. This is Aaron Saft with you, and today's episode is with another one of my physical therapist friends, Sean Simonds of Specialized Physical Therapy. Sean had been telling me about blood flow restriction, and I'd heard about this therapy, this treatment, but I didn't really know what it was or what to expect. So I asked Sean if I could come for a session just to kind of see what it was prior to this podcast, because in this podcast we're going to talk all about blood flow restriction and what it is, what it does, what you should look for if you want to go try it, because there are a number of things that you should know beforehand and look for when you seek out the therapy. So I went to a session, and my kids went with me, and my daughter made a small video of me during the session. And needless to say, I was thoroughly impressed at how hard it made you work so quickly into the workout. Now, granted, I didn't warm up, I had already run, etc., blah, 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 but I mean, it was incredible, the effects that I felt, pretty quickly into this workout, about 4.5 minutes into the workout. We talk about that in the podcast, but, experiencing it, I became a believer in that, this truly can help us in our training. So if you have more questions, don't hesitate to reach out to Sean. I'm going to put all his contact information in the show notes. So, we'll get to that interview in just a moment. Wanted to talk about a few other things that are going on. I sent out a letter, an email, if you will, to all Hellbender participants and put it up on our Facebook page. And as I try to communicate everything that's going on as quickly as I can, I met with the Run 828 Foundation this past weekend. Recording this on June 17th. So I guess that would be June 6th we met, June 13th. June 13th we met and talked about Hellbender and should it go on? And I think we all came to the conclusion, due to everything that's going on, beyond the uncertainty, the problems with ascertaining permits, just because of the various entities we work through. Just I know they had their hesitations as well. That kind of pointed us into the moral compass, telling us that we should just cancel the event. I couldn't foresee how many events were moving to the fall, and I felt even more awful that we were stepping on already existing toes of those events that were already taking place, and sucking from the same volunteer pool off of those events that were counting on those volunteers. So many things, safety. It's the same reasons we keep seeing races get canceled. But morally, ethically, I could not have you guys training when I and the board, because it was not me that made the decision. This is the board that made the final decision that we needed to cancel the event. And just let it be. So we are offering refunds to all runners, even the people that tried to defer. We are just going to clean slate. There'll be no deferrals. We don't know what the future of the event will be, so we don't want to say you can defer when we don't know if there will be an event in 2021. So we are offering referrals. We certainly appreciate the donations people are making, so that hopefully the race can move forward and happen again. So we'll see what happens with that. So that's the update on Hellbender. And people can email me, runningpains@gmail.com. That's where you can let me know what you would like. We're offering mail a check or PayPal for refunds. And again, if you'd like to make a donation, we certainly appreciate that. So beyond that, I have set a date of July 11th for my FKT attempt on Art Loeb. I'm going out to scout this weekend. Going out on the 20th with a couple buddies, and we're going to do the first probably 18 to 20 miles, of the Art Loeb, and just kind of scout it out, see what it's looking like. I imagine the grass is going to get pretty high, and there's going to be down trees because we really haven't been able to do any trail maintenance. So, there's going to be that. But really, I'm just looking forward to going after it and giving it a solid effort and trying to get a PR. I've never really gone after the Art Loeb, so looking forward to that effort. I'm reaching out to my buddies that currently hold the FKT. That would be Morgan Elliott, Patrick Reagan, and Daniel Hamilton. So I'm reaching out to them, letting them know what's going on. I'm going to call it Chasing Giants because, those guys, those are some big names to chase after. I have the utmost respect for each of them. I'm sitting at 42, almost 43, and, my heyday has come and gone. But at the same time, I still want to give it a shake and go after it. And if I don't get it, I don't get it. But, I'm looking forward to it. And by all means, I'm going to do everything I can to try to get it. I believe their record sits at 5:45. I have to verify that. I want to go on the FKT website and just verify and make sure that I have everything in place to go after the FKT. So really looking forward to that. I am going to do it supported. So wife's going to crew me, probably with my kids, and probably have some runners run with me, and just looking forward to that experience. So stay tuned for that. We'll probably do a little bit of maybe we'll do a little podcasting after we finish, or so. We'll see. So that's my FKT attempt on the Art Loeb, and I am going to have Boco, the Boulder, Colorado company, Boco, their hats. I've been working on getting hats with them for a while. They are finally on order. I have the Run Style and the Running Trucker both ordered with my logo. So when I get those in, my athletes get first dibs. But after that, I'll put some up on the website for sale, or I'll put it on Facebook. And if you're interested, let me know. I got to find out a final price. So got some time for that. But just a heads up. Coaching has been great. Once again, thank you guys. I seem to be picking up, new athletes each week. It's exciting. I'm really enjoying working with new people and getting new challenges and new events that people are training for. New distances. So it's been really cool. Currently, I'm in a coaching seminar. Taking a coaching seminar online. And it's kind of nice to get some new ideas, some fresh ideas, and I'm also signed up for a second seminar and another certification. Arthur Lydiard, who's a big coach. A lot of us look up to as one of the great coaches of all time. So I'm taking his foundations certification levels 1 and 2 coming up here. So trying to keep learning. Exciting. I mean, really enjoying the process. If you're interested, just reach out to me, runningpains@gmail.com, or visit my website. Sign up for my newsletter on there. I put out an informative newsletter each month, and follow me on social media. I have the MR Runningpains coaching page. I'm also on Strava. I love reaching out to people on there. People ask me questions on there, and that's a really cool way to connect with people as well. Funny thing on Strava, I went after a segment. I have been chasing this darn segment for a long time. One thing or another would come up, and I wouldn't get the segment. I wouldn't be able to do it. The forest was closed, etc. But the other day, I was like, all right, I'm gonna go after this segment. It's a good climbing segment, and so I was excited. It basically you make this turn and then you just shoot straight up the the climb, and I was running it. I was feeling good. It's like there's been very few times where I've gotten to the top because it gets steep and rocky, where I just felt like I could keep pushing, and I pushed right through. Ran through the end of it, and I was like, wow, that was good. That was good effort. I don't know if I got it, but I'm excited to see, when I upload. So, I get home, I get to the upload, and it doesn't show up. I was like, oh man, what a bummer. But anyway, such is life, right? I don't know. I couldn't find the segment thereafter, so I don't know if with the new upgrade, if some old segments were taken down. If they were created by somebody that doesn't have premium. I'm not sure what the story is there. If any of you guys know, you can say something, message me or whatever. But I was like, oh man, after all this time, I just kind of laughed at it. You got to, right? But anyway, guys, I hope you enjoyed this conversation with Sean Simonds on blood flow restriction. We refer to it as BFR, and we'll be talking to you at the end. Hello, my guest today is Sean Simonds. I want to have a good talk with him today about blood flow restriction, and I want to thank him for being here. Say hello, Sean. Introduce yourself, please.
Hey, Aaron. Thanks so much for having me. I am a physical therapist at Specialized Physical Therapy right here in Asheville. Been here for almost 5 years now, and really excited about all the stuff we have to offer.
Awesome, man. So you had me under the cuffs last week so I could get an experience of what this was like. I posted on Instagram, kind of giving a teaser to this podcast here. And it was about 4.5 minutes before I was like, I'm going to die on here. This is, this should be an interesting conversation. Thanks for agreeing to join me here. So that said, why don't you go ahead and talk about what is blood flow restriction and what's the protocol? What do you do with blood flow restriction?
So, I guess it's it's all in the name. We're restricting some of the blood flow, whether it's in your arms or your legs. And what they found is when you do that, you kind of block the lactic acid, the stuff that makes your muscles burn, from kind of getting out like it normally would. And when it does that, it signals to your brain that it might need to do some repair work. And that's great when we're trying to build muscle or endurance or anything else, because your brain's response is to release human growth hormone, which, unfortunately, a lot of athletes or pro athletes try and use illegally to get a jump on things. And this is a very legal, very natural way of boosting HGH in your system. So it's fabulous for improving strength and endurance, and certainly for healing times when we're talking about a rehab perspective. As far as a protocol goes, it really varies from person to person, just like any other workout. But in general, what we do is we work out at about 20% of like a 1 rep max, which is really not that much. And we do about 2 to 4 sets per exercise. Again, very similar to what you would do in a gym, but at a much lower weight or resistance. But we're still looking at the same strength gains and endurance gains. So it's really pretty exciting.
Absolutely. So you had me on the bicycle. And so this can be done biking, running, I imagine rowing.
Yeah. We've had a bunch of professional rowers that have done it and gone through the same fun that you did.
Let's talk about the fun real quick. So it's very similar to, as you put it, a blood pressure cuff that you wear. We wore it bilaterally, so I had it on both legs. Talk about that for a minute. How does the machine know how much pressure to put onto the muscles being worked?
Yeah, so we only use there are 2 FDA approved units out there. We have one of them, and they have a Doppler ultrasound in it. So it's actually a surgical grade tourniquet. So if you went in and had surgery, you would recognize the same old unit. So obviously the program's a little bit different because we don't want it to completely cut off all the blood. But it's the same unit, and it can measure the blood flow throughout the process, and it actually adjusts the pressure. And like when you were on the bike, when you were pedaling harder and your muscles were contracting more, you could hear the unit going because it was adjusting for those contractions. So it makes it a lot safer because we can monitor that throughout the whole workout.
It was absolutely fascinating because at first you're like, all right, this isn't so bad. And then you said, all right, now I want you to start putting in intervals. And so we did 12 stroke pedals hard, and then 10 stroke pedals easy. And at first I was like, okay, that's not so bad. But then, over the, just the few minutes that I was doing it, it became increasingly harder and harder. I mean, I was really starting to draw wind, just like sucking it down, just like, oh my gosh. So what's happening when that's going on? Why am I struggling so hard?
So, I mean, part of it is you're not getting the same blood return that you normally do. So that's relatively important, especially in endurance activities like that. The other thing is that you're pretty substantially increasing lactic acid in the muscle. And as you know from all your training in the past, that definitely makes things harder. And so we're artificially increasing that even more. So all that becomes very difficult very quickly. And your body is working extremely hard to catch up.
Right. So the best way I can explain it, just so people know what they're getting into, is if you ran an all-out 400 meters on the track and you're getting into that last straightaway where you're on the home stretch and you're trying to give it your all, and all of a sudden your legs just turn to cinder and you're sucking air like you're never going to get it again. That's where I was at 4.5 minutes. So know that going into it, that it's a complete struggle. Like you had talked about, when you first get athletes on there's a certain amount of time that you put them on for. Do you want to talk about that for a second?
Yeah. So for the reasons that you're talking about right now, we usually start people off a bit slower. I wanted to give you the experience of it and see what you can do with it. But yeah, we usually ramp people up probably a little bit slower than what we did with you. But we usually have people get at least accustomed to it and warmed up a bit. And obviously someone that's never done it before, we usually take it a little bit easier to start so they can get that feel. Especially, a lot of athletes, the people that are coming in to do the endurance type training, like you did the other day, have experience with working out and know what that lactic acid burning type sensation feels like. So we'll ramp them up a little bit quicker than somebody that's never done it. But yeah, there's a warm up involved, and they usually start off kind of like you did. Again, you had a truncated routine there, but we usually do a bit of a warm up, and then you go into these intervals, and it's just like any other HIIT workout. You're trying to really push the body to make those adaptations, and then again, the BFR really accentuates those gains.
Absolutely. So is there a standardized protocol for people? Like, is there something out there that, the research has shown that, you start the people out with this amount and then kind of build them up? Or is that something that's kind of left to the user, in this case, yourself?
So one of the cool things about this is that the Department of Defense is the one that created this therapy anyways. So before it ever got to the public sector, we had a pile of research that we were already able to use. So the strength training that we use it for is very standardized, and there's obviously wiggle room just like anything else. But, we do 4 sets and it's 30 repetitions and then 3 sets of 15. And that's what they found is an appropriate volume to get the same strength gains with only 20% of the weight. And then for the cardiovascular stuff, the endurance, all that, there's a couple different protocols that have been thrown out there that people are using. I know we talked about how the couple of the research articles have shown good increases in VO2 max. And then the bigger gain was actually seen in time to exhaustion. So, you're talking about your legs turning into cinders, and that's where this has been shown to be really beneficial in endurance athletes. So yes, the short answer is that there are a number of protocols out there for various types of athletes and the specific goals that you're going for.
Is there a certification that one has to have in order to do this, or is it something done by medical professionals? How does that work?
Yeah, so if you want to get one of the FDA approved ones, which personally would be the only ones I'd recommend, because they're the ones with the Doppler ultrasound and the ones that you're able to monitor the blood flow constantly and consistently, you do need to be a medical provider. You do need to take a certification to get it. And you're actually not even allowed to purchase the equipment without proof of completing the course. There's stuff out there like voodoo floss and stuff like that that a lot of athletes and strength training people have used in the past. And those are effective. But again, you can't monitor everything as closely. And, if you're messing with the blood flow, it's not something I'd be comfortable doing.
Right. Those are more of like a self.
Yep. Self wrap.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. Gotcha. So that all said, we've kind of talked about the benefits. Are there any, potential side effects or health risks that are involved with this therapy?
Yeah. So the idea is that we screen everyone appropriately for that. So anybody with various types of blood diseases, anyone that has had blood clots in the past, any kind of heart issues, cancers, that kind of thing, we screen out, and they're not going to be appropriate for it just because of the risk. But otherwise, what they found is that it's actually, pretty darn safe, which is why it's available in the public sector now, not just still at the DoD. So there are obviously a few risk factors because we are including some of the blood flow, but we do have a screening process, and people go through, and we go through a past medical history and stuff like that to make sure that it's safe to do.
Nice, perfect. And how often does one do a BFR section?
So the cool thing with the BFR is that you can do it as many times as you do any other workout. Again, we're working out at 20% of a 1 rep max. So you're not actually going to get the same delayed onset muscle soreness that you normally would with like heavy lifting or something. So you can use it as often as you would regularly work out.
Okay. Very good. So it would be more like as often as you do an interval session, correct?
Yeah. So if we're talking about endurance,
right,
then yes.
Yeah. If lifting, it's just up to how many times they lift per week.
Yeah. And again, it's just like any other routine. I wouldn't tell you to do BFR every time you worked out. I think the variability in workouts is critically important. So this is really just a component of that variability.
something to add to the tool chest.
Yeah, and I don't know, I can't remember if we talked about it, but it's really nice for people that are in season, just because it doesn't create that same muscle soreness that a traditional workout might. So it does add some of that variability, which is nice.
Something that we had talked about earlier, I wanted to touch back on was the two cuffs. You had said that some people just use one cuff. I imagine it would be a much longer workout if you had to switch it over to the other leg, right? And then that's pretty much why you're using the two cuffs. So when people are looking, they're looking for a person that's going to use the two cuffs at the same time. Is there anything else that they should be looking for?
Well, again, the FDA approved units, because it's not, there's not a law saying you have to use the FDA approved units. I personally just feel more comfortable using it because of the monitoring that's available on one of those units versus just educated guessing with the bands.
Right.
So I wouldn't use one of those. I personally, especially for the endurance athlete, like the dual cuff, just if for no other reason than it dramatically reduces the workout time. And again, if we're looking at a response from the body, we're going to build up more lactic acid if both legs or arms are cuffed. So I think that you'll get more benefit out of, more effect out of it.
Cool. And you had mentioned that we're not going to have as much delayed muscle onset soreness with the blood flow restriction session. So we do this session. Afterwards, can we still expect to feel like fatigue? We're still going to feel.
Oh yeah, you'll definitely still feel fatigue. You will not feel like you've wasted your time. But again, the muscle soreness itself is traditionally much lower just because of the lower load that you place on the body.
And that session would take the place of a running session for that day. So you wouldn't go out and still do another run thereafter. It would probably be.
Correct. You're going to get the cardiovascular benefit you're looking for the day for sure.
Right on. Gotcha. Let's see.
But I mean, if you do, I mean, it's not like you're too fatigued. It's like you couldn't do a run, but you know what I'm saying?
Yes.
The benefits are going to be there in that workout.
Right. So you wouldn't have to go out, necessarily. I mean, there's people that are obsessed with their mileage. So they may want to go out and get a few more miles in, but if you've done your BFR for the day, you wouldn't have to go out and do another interval session because that's pretty much what you just did.
Your cardiovascular system will have worked out very efficiently.
Absolutely. So is there any time period in one's training that this would be more effective? I mean, obviously it's an interval. So, would we be doing this in the base phase as well, or just in kind of the work phase? Kind of if you will, race season, kind of pre-taper, if you will.
Yeah. So, that goes back to one of the earlier questions on the protocols that are involved and stuff. So you absolutely can do it in that base phase. The protocols are different because just like anything else, the phase is different and your goals for that phase are different. So the protocol is a little bit different and the approach is changed. But then, like you experienced that ramping up phase pre-season, pre-event can be very effective as well. So you can use it just about anywhere as long as the programming, just like any other workout, if the programming is appropriate. And again, even in season, because of the lower load that you place on the muscles in the body, you do have some flexibility there as well. And that's where a lot of the pro athletes are starting to really catch on to that, just because in the past, you don't do as much of that high volume, high load type stuff in season because you're going to be too sore and too tired and all that stuff to peak at the right time. And this is allowing us to get some of those strength gains without that problem. As far as detrimental, I think it all comes down to the programming. If you're doing an organized, periodized schedule and you're ramping at the right time and taking time off at the right time, then I wouldn't say it's any more detrimental than anything else, as long as the programming is good.
Cool. So, I mean, this obviously has benefits for somebody that has a running injury because they can kind of cross train, right? So we could use this in cycling. So we've already talked, there's really nothing risk wise. So as long as the other activity this would be, fine to use as the other activity isn't bothering the injury, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely. So, if you've got a runner that is having like Achilles pain is one of the things I used it for today. And the lady can't do long distances running, but she's perfectly comfortable going nuts on a bike. Then you can throw the BFR on and have her do a really good, intense session on the bike. So she's not losing all those cardiovascular gains that, are critically important in an endurance athlete. So it's been really nice as far as that goes, just because, you can bike, row, do anything else. Can't really swim with it, but other than that, you can choose another activity as long as it's not bothering the injury, and you really can do a nice job maintaining a lot of stuff while recovering, which is a really nice tool for us as physical therapists.
Let's just talk about the injuries for a second. And depending on where the injury is, let's say we had a lower, lower appendage to let's say the leg. Let's say I had a calf injury, right? So the cuff, when I did it, they were on my quadriceps. Now we're getting blood flow restriction down to that area. Is there a potential that could, light up that injury because the blood's not getting to it? Have you had any experience with anybody having a problem with that, or?
No. So the one time that someone said that blood flow restriction had irritated like a calf injury or something, it turns out that they had done it themselves and they had placed a band around their calf muscle, and the rubbing had irritated it, which is not a surprise there. So the cuffs for the BFR are going to be all the way up, as far up on the hip as you can get it. So there's going to be no rubbing or anything on that. And the blood flow restriction is temporary. So yeah, if you did that for a long period of time, then that can create some issues. But we're never going over, a few minutes really. Most of the time we're doing 8 to 10 minute intervals at most. So you don't have that risk of not getting enough blood flow to an area. So if anything, the return is that you get lots of HGH, which is great if you're trying to heal muscle or tendons or anything else. So.
Perfect. That answered my next question. And if someone's looking to try blood flow restriction, but they don't have access to your clinic, what questions, we kind of talked a little bit about it earlier, but what questions should they ask the clinic to make sure they're getting the most out of a session?
Yeah, well, the FDA approved systems, you definitely have to have that. Because again, the other ones are kind of guesswork and or educated guesswork at least. And you run the risk of creating damage. And to your point, not letting enough blood get in. There's a reason why we have a specific percentage that we monitor throughout the workout. So that's really the big thing. If somebody's offering BFR, just make sure it's one of the 2 FDA approved units, and you should be in good shape.
And you had mentioned that there was a certification that you had to go through to be able to operate that machine. Is that like public knowledge that they have that certification, or can you ask if they have that certification? Is that something that's?
Oh yeah, you can absolutely ask. The websites usually have it on there. It's not something you're just going to randomly know. Oh, I'll look up Sean on this BFR site. But everybody should, we're all required to have our certificates and all that kind of stuff. So you can always ask.
What's that certification called?
So the one that I use is called the Owens Recovery System, and he was one of the guys that really brought it onto the stage. That's kind of the main one right now, and they list all their providers on their website, just to make sure, for that reason really, so people can look them up and see where their providers are.
Thank you. And so prior to the session, I had no idea what I was getting into when I walked into your clinic, and you're like, "Oh, you're wearing flip flops." I was like, "Yeah, like what are we doing?" I had no clue. So, yeah, because I didn't know we were going to actually run. Like I just thought this was something you laid on a table, and but you actually got me, onto the bike and got going. So I understood what was going on. Aside from having shoes and being prepared to run or bike, is there anything else a person can do to be prepared for a session?
Yeah, no, obviously, probably not that. That's probably not the way we do it most of the time. No, we usually do a normal workout. If someone comes in cold, especially our younger athletes that are getting dropped off after school or something, we'll take them through a proper warm up first, and really get the blood flowing before we go and restrict it again. But no, there's nothing specific. There's no recommendations for increased hydration or any kind of nutrients above what you already normally do for a good workout. And the same thing goes for after a workout. The recommendations are basically the same. We usually like a pretty solid cool down, and obviously everyone should be well hydrated and that kind of thing. So nothing specific, just your normal stuff for a big workout.
And given warm up, the BFR session, and cool down, about how long should a person anticipate a session lasting?
It's about an hour.
An hour.
We do the warm up, then you have the intervals throughout the session, and then we have a pretty solid cool down, and it all wraps up around an hour.
Okay, cool. Anything else that we're missing on blood flow restriction?
No, I mean we're obviously your podcast and what you guys are talking about is high functioning endurance athletes. But the cool thing for us and for any injury, even in the elite athletes here, is that we can start rehab and get a lot of gains much earlier in the process, because you're talking about your calf muscle. There are a lot of times when you have a sore muscle, torn muscle, sprain, strain, whatever, and it hurts to load it, even though all of the research is saying, hey, we need to load this to make it better. And so rehab and recovery can be delayed a bit because you can't load it as much as you want. Well, the BFR, we can say, hey, we're gonna load you at only 20%, and you're gonna get the same strength gains. So rehab and the recovery is accelerated, and especially for athletes, that's a really awesome thing because you can get back on your feet much quicker. And we had an ACL tear today, and so she's only a week out of surgery, and she's already doing leg lifts and stuff. But I've got the BFR on her because I can't load her more than that at the moment because of the surgery she had. So it really accelerates that recovery process. So if you're injured, this is amazing for speeding that along. Awesome. So it's been great.
Very cool. Awesome. Thank you. And then to finish it out, just some questions for you. There's I always like to hear other people's perspectives. Are there any therapies that you feel that are out there right now that you could say, don't waste your time and money on? Anything you want to debunk right now? I always like to hear people hear what they have to say.
That's a loaded question, man. No. I'll qualify this with if something feels good and you think that it's helping, I think that it's beneficial. In general, what the research is showing is that if it's something that's passive, it's not going to be as beneficial as something that's more active. Your body is made to move, and it wants to move. So, if you have an injury and you say, all I really want is someone to, work on my muscles and do this gentle stuff and move me around and all that kind of stuff, that's okay. And if that helps, then that's great. But at the end of the day, the research shows that the more active you are and loading the tissue and all that kind of stuff, that's what's going to be beneficial. So, there's a variety of things out there that people try. At the end of the day, you got to load it and you got to work for it, unfortunately.
Excellent. That's a good neutral answer. Do you have a favorite book or resource to suggest to runners?
Oh, yeah. No, I mean, there's a lot of great books. Obviously, the best resource is going to be a physical therapist, right? I mean, but seriously, I mean, we're doctorally trained movement specialists. We take people that are brand new to exercise all the way to being professional athletes. We do a ton of strength and conditioning. You don't need to be injured to see us. You don't need to even be in pain to see us. We're the movement specialists. We enjoy any kind of movement. And then as far as the books go, I love the 80-20 running. I've had a lot of athletes that have come in and really enjoyed that book and have found it very useful. And then there's a book that probably came out maybe 8 or 10 years ago called The First 20 Minutes, and really dove into kind of the new wave of thinking in exercise science and how you can apply that directly to the normal person, the everyday athlete, and the elite athletes. And it was really good. It's really concise. Not a lot of people, or not as many people, have read that one, but it's a good book.
Right. I hadn't heard of that one. 80/20 is Matt Fitzgerald, but do you know who wrote the first 20 minutes by chance?
I knew you were going to ask me. I don't remember, but I can get that for you.
That's okay. I'll put it in the show notes. I'll find it. Awesome, man. Well, again, thanks for your time. Thanks for making me breathe really heavy and hurt and wonder why I chose to do that. But no, it was, it is amazing. I believe you as a person of experience through that. It's definitely going to do what it's saying to do. So, I encourage the listeners to give it a try because, I think it's really going to help others kind of creep that max VO2 up, especially, like athletes that have been in this for a long haul, like myself, that we're looking at a point or two on our VO2 max and getting gains. I think this is going to help us creep up a little bit beyond what we could typically do in our typical interval sessions. So that said, Sean, where can people find you and how can they get in touch with you?
So our website is specializednc.com. There are now 4 of us. We have a clinic in Hendersonville, right off of Main Street. There's one in Candler on Sand Hill Road and one on Merriman Road under the Steinmart. And then I'm located right next to Publix on Hendersonville Road, just up from FootRx. And like I said, our website, specializednc.com. We're on Facebook and Instagram, both at specializednc. And we'd love to hear from you. We can answer any questions you got. We've got BFR material on the website. We've got it on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram. We absolutely love it. And we look forward to talking to you about it.
And your email's on the website as well?
Yeah, all of our emails, fax number, phone number, whole 9 yards.
Excellent. Thank you, my friend. And thanks for the time and all the knowledge.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Well, I want to thank Sean Simonds once again for joining us. He can be found at www.specializednc.com. Again, I'll put that on the show notes. Sean is, he's definitely a great resource, great person to reach out to. Blood flow restriction, just a really cool way to increase your max VO2. Get up a few points when you're doing short, intense intervals to try to increase it otherwise. But this is it's a simple 10-minute workout every once in a while can help bump up your VO2 a few points. So check it out. Do a little bit of research. As Sean said, the cuffs that he uses, the pressurized cuffs that he uses, that's the way to go. Be careful of other ways because they don't really know how much restriction they're truly putting on you. But look into it, ask the questions Sean talked about, and I hope you get good information out of the episode. Thank you once again for joining us. Please follow me on socials, review and like this podcast if you would. Helps others get to listen to this and gets the word out there. Follow my YouTube channel. YouTube channel is under Aaron Saft. And anyway, I want to thank you guys for your time, for your ears, for your patience, for your love, and we'll talk to you again next time.